Hey guys, and today I am starting a new series of videos that's going to be like a smaller scale review sort of thing, which I do off the cuff, where I talk about games that I didn't finish. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because the reviews that are on my website, for starters, they're all like written out and stuff, and yeah, I don't see the point in making videos of them because I've already done the reviews already, so there's no point in me reading my review out loud. I just don't see the point in that personally. But at the same time, I make a point of finishing those games, and sometimes a game comes along and you just don't want to finish the game because for one reason or another, and it might be because the game is terrible, but it might not be. It might be other reasons why you couldn't finish the game. There's a lot of reasons why like a player can't finish a game, so I want to address the reasons why I didn't finish the game. And the reason why I'm doing it off the cuff is because like I could do a script for this, but I think it's just a lot more. I just want to talk about it and express it off the cuff because it means that it feels more natural and it gets the point out there. Now, the game I want to talk about today is a game that a lot of people know about. It's a game that's received a lot of praise by critics and players everywhere. And this game, I think a lot of people are going to be a bit pissed off with what I have to say about it, but I'm going to talk about Witcher 3. Now, when I first picked up Witcher 3, I was kind of excited for it. Like, I didn't pick it up early, I picked up cheap, and I'm glad I did, by the way. And I was like, yeah, I want to see what they do with this game. I want to give it a chance. Like, it's a Polish game. Polish game developers have made some great games in the past, like Painkiller, for example, so how could it possibly go wrong? I mean, I like Two Worlds 2, and that was a Polish game, and a lot of people hated that game, so if people like Witcher 3 and that's a Polish game, it should be good. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And I want to talk about how I had a terrible experience playing Witcher 3. And first of all, I want to talk about kind of the beginning of the game. And this is where I had the biggest issues with the game. The beginning of Witcher 3 is absolutely dreadful. It is the worst way you could possibly start a game ever, period. Especially a game like Witcher 3. Now, the beginning of the game starts in this location called White Orchard, and it's like this tutorial area, but they don't really tell you that it's a tutorial area. However, the game makes you feel like you've been thrust into this huge open world, but actually you're not. You're actually in a small contained area which has borders around it, like invisible walls which say you can't go beyond this point. Now, the moment I started playing this game, I wanted to travel around and explore, visit all these cool areas, only to figure out that once I reach this border, Geralt says, I'm getting too old for this, and he turns around and it basically says, you can't go this way, you have to turn back. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I've only walked like a short distance and I've already reached the edge of the map. Then I realised, hang on a minute, to actually explore more of the map, I have to go into the world map menu and I have to teleport or fast travel to another area of the map, which is miles away. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I will have to teleport then because I obviously can't walk there or go there. It's not like Gothic 3 where you start off in Murtana and you can just walk all the way to Nordmar or walk all the way to Varant. Like, you can swim there if you really want to. You can go anywhere you want right from the beginning. Like, you can go from one place to another seamlessly, and I loved that because it's just like you just feel so free, whereas in Witcher 3 you kind of don't, because, and there's many reasons why, but the main problem I have with Witcher 3 is the way the open world is handled. Witcher 3, it masquerades itself as an open world game, and yes, technically it is an open world game, but it doesn't feel like an open world game should. It feels like a very story-driven game, and it is, but that's the problem. There are so many conflicting design choices with this game, and these conflicting design choices cause a lot of issues. Like, for example, the fact that it's a story-driven game and it's open world. And I've addressed this in many games before, like Skyrim, for example, which is another game that has a story and it's open world, and it's kind of like, what's the point in traveling around the world doing odd jobs for people when you're supposed to be the Dragonborn saving the world or whatever? I didn't bother with that game much. I played a few minutes of it and I got bored. But anyways, basically, when it comes to story, you usually want to be a more linear game if you're going to go for story, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people will disagree with that, but here's the thing, like, Nier Automata managed to have the right balance of openness and linearity. It was what I like to call a semi-open world, and I think this benefited the game a lot because the world itself felt really open and huge, but at the same time, it was kind of like the story allowed you to, like, it had to remain linear for story reasons. So the game was built with that in mind, and as such, it is linear, but it feels open, and that way they could focus more assets on other things rather than like trying to make all this empty space and add all this terrain to the game. And yeah, that takes time, and I appreciate that these open world games take time to make because you have these massive worlds that you have to add all this stuff to. And I just think it's a bit of a waste when you've got all of these areas that you want to go to, but you just don't have really any incentive to go to them. And plus, most of it's just the same thing over and over and over again. There's not really much difference in the places you explore. Now, granted, there are a few different locations in Witcher 3. I will give Witcher 3 one thing, and that's the draw distance and the visuals of Witcher 3 are pretty solid. They are. I really do like how this game looks. There's some nice locations you can go to, but there aren't too many varied locations. Like, there's the swamps, for example, which is cool, I guess. I think that there's a few, like, other areas as well, which are kind of interesting, but put simply, I think, aside from a few areas, a lot of it is just going to be trees and grass for most of the game. Now, this is fine. I mean, most open world games are like that, and this game is no exception, but I just think, do we really need the game to have an open world? Is it really needed? And this is a question I ask about a lot of games these days that have open worlds. Is it really needed? I mean, part of the fun of playing games is asking the question of what's around the corner and the curiosity. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the exception to this because I just love, like, to feel curious about what's around the corner. But nowadays it's just given to you. It's like, oh, there you go. Here's the whole world. Go explore it. But it's empty. There's no reason, no incentive to explore it. And it's just like, go there. Like, why? Why should I go there? And yeah, that's kind of a problem that I have with open world games. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like open world when it's done right. Like Nier Automata having a semi-open world, I really like that. I also like the open world of Gothic 3 a lot. That game had a pretty good open world. Heck, I will even admit that World of Warcraft had an excellent open world, like in terms of its aesthetic design, despite the fact that it's a piece of shit to play and that it fucked up the story of the series. But that's a rant for another time. I'm talking about Witcher 3 here, and Witcher 3's open world is probably the worst, the most conflicting design choice of any game that's included open world in it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense for Witcher 3 to be open world at all, and that is for one reason: the leveling system, or should I say, the way that experience is gained in Witcher 3. Now, one thing I do like about RPGs is the fact that, now I can understand that a lot of people don't like this, because they're like, oh, it just makes the game too easy, but I like how you can, like, level up and become stronger by just simply fighting enemies, like, just, like, through combat and just killing enemies. I just like that. I like that aspect of games. And I understand that it is kind of flawed in a way. It's kind of like a flaw in the system that people can do that, but I like it, and it's one of those imperfections that makes it more enjoyable, if you ask me. Now, I understand that not everyone's gonna like it, but, like, whatever, like, it's an RPG, deal with it. But Witcher 3 decides that to stop people from grinding, they're going to reward you with, like, barely any experience for killing enemies. And this is problematic because part of the fun of Western RPGs, for me, is the open world and being able to go anywhere and just kill anything and then just move over to the next area on the other side of the world and then do, like, that's the whole point in open world games to me, like the ability to go there and do stuff regardless of what level you are. But in Witcher 3 it's kind of like, no, you can't go there. Well, you can go there technically, but let's put it this way, the game punishes you for exploring. Now, how does it do that? Well, let's put it this way, each enemy that you face in this game has a level, and for example, like, you'll go in one area and like you'll be fighting level 1s, level 2s, level 3s, level 4s, then you go to another area, not nearby, but the next area on, like VLAN, and then you're fighting level 10s and level 12s, and then there's another area where you'll start fighting level 15s and level 16s, just an example, and it's just like, if you go from VLAN, and if you're like level 6 in VLAN and you go to this other area, you're going to get absolutely slaughtered because these enemies are all ridiculously high level and they are going to destroy you. I seriously mean it, they are. If you see a red skull on the enemy, that basically means they're going to destroy you in seconds. Like, it's not even worth challenging them. Even if you do win, it's not satisfying because they're all hit point sponges, so what's the point? And it's not a challenge because at the end of the day, like, the combat is just dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack. That's what the combat is. And that's a rant that's coming up, but this isn't challenging because for it to be challenging, it needs to, like, that's the thing, like, I associate challenge with, like, fun in the sense that it's a difficult task, but it's fun to overcome that task. But here's the thing, yes, it's tough, but it's not fun, because you're just hacking away at something that you should be killing with your sword, but you're not because they have so much health. Like, even the, like, tiniest monster, if it's a higher level than you, it still takes forever to kill, and it will still kill you super quickly, and it's just like, I understand that games have this, and I understand why they have this, but at the same time, it's annoying in this case. Now, it won't be annoying in most RPGs, because in most RPGs, when you kill monsters, you get a nice chunk of experience from it. So you can just basically, like, oh, I'll just go kill monsters in this area, level up to this level, and then I'll go to the next area. That sounds like a good idea. But Witcher 3 doesn't allow you to do that because, well, you can do that, but it'll take ages, to the point that it isn't fun to play that way. Because rather than getting rid of grinding, which is kind of the reason why they did this, basically the point is that enemies reward you with barely any experience at all for killing them. So basically combat against most enemies in Witcher 3 is completely pointless. It's a waste of time. The only reason why you do it is to collect ingredients for alchemy. Otherwise, there's just no point in fighting anything. You might as well just run past enemies because they give so little experience that there's just no point in fighting them to begin with. And this is where the problem with Witcher 3 comes in. This is where its problems start to thicken. Because when you have an open world game, the beauty of open world is being able to play the way you want to. Freedom. That's the beauty of it. I want to have the freedom to grind. If I have the freedom to roam, I should also have the freedom to grind. It's called consistency. That's what I want in the game. I want consistency in my game. And that's the thing. I want my game to be consistently designed in every way. I want the RPG elements to work with the gameplay, and it just doesn't because of this leveling system. Like, the leveling system butchers the whole open world experience because it's just pointless to roam anywhere when there's no incentive to go anywhere. But there are punishments for going anywhere. Let's put it this way. The game punishes you for exploring, but the game doesn't reward you for exploring. Not much. Yeah, you can sometimes obtain treasure chests, but here's the thing. Here's another problem with Witcher 3. All the loot that you find in treasure chests is scaled to your level. So if you get a treasure chest and you are like level 6, you're going to get a level 6 weapon from it, or level 6 items from it, for example. But if you're like level 30, you'll get level 30 weapons from it and stuff. And this is another problem, because it just defeats the purpose of it being an RPG. If everything's scaled to your level, then what's the point? Granted, there are equipment that you can obtain that doesn't scale to your level, and yeah, you can find swords and stuff that you are too low level to equip, and that's another problem. Why is there a level restriction on weapons? Like, what's the point in that? Why have a level restriction on weapons? why? Like, why can't I wield this sword? Why do I have to be level 20 to just hold a sword in my hand and swing it? It makes no sense to me. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And, like, this is the thing. You've done all this questing and you've found this awesome sword in the quest, or you've got this awesome sword in the shop. Like, I wouldn't say a quest because most of the quests give you leveled loot, but in shops you usually find these items which are really high level items. Why can't I just buy that sword and use it? Why can't I just do that? Whereas quests, you get the quest complete and then it's like, oh wait, the sword is shit because you just bought a sword from the shop which is better. It's just like, that's another problem that I have with Witcher 3. The fact that every time I complete a quest, the reward is always not worth it. Unless it's money, in which case it's like, well, like I can use it to buy more equipment. But like the sword and artifacts that you can get for like completing quests, they're just pointless because the equipment that you can buy at shops is better. And it's just like, it defeats the purpose of completing quests for artifacts and stuff that you get from it. I think they're called artifacts, I don't know, like let's put it this way, there's kind of like a rarity system with the game. I have just always called them artifact loots because they're kind of like a special like sword and that, like, which looks cool and it looks different, but it's shittier than what you've already got. It's basically systematic engagement, which I mentioned in theory crafting before, where they like there's this, like, systems designed around like keeping you engaged in like what you're doing. It's like having loot systems which are like, I need to get rares, I need to get legendaries, I need to get all this, you know. That's systematic engagement to me, and it's like, we need to build this system around getting players to give them an incentive to find more loot. That's kind of what it is, and that's kind of what Witcher 3 tries to do, and it just feels wrong. Like, it just feels stupid. It doesn't really make sense at all to have it in this game. It just feels tacked on and needless. And I just don't see the point in having it, because it's like, well, we might as well just have all the weapons look unique or all the weapons look generic. Take your pick. Like, I don't care which one it is. All I care about is being rewarded for what I get. If you're not willing to put the extra work in making all the swords look unique, then don't bother. If you want to make all the swords unique, then do the job properly and make all the swords look unique. Right, that rants aside, let's go back to the leveling system and talk about the other aspect of the game, which is questing, and how questing fucks up the whole open world nature of the game and kind of makes it linear. Because when you complete a quest in Witcher 3, you're basically rewarded with a ton of experience. Like, I remember there was this quest where I had to basically talk to this group of children at an orphanage and answer their questions about my libido. Yeah, these kids start asking Geralt about his libido and he starts to explain it to them, and you get experience for that. Meanwhile, you kill a drowner, you get barely any experience at all. So basically you get more experience for talking about your libido and intimidating town criers, or whatever they're called, but you get barely any experience for actually doing combat. So basically you get more experience for talking and less experience for actual combat, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but that's the way Witcher 3 works. So basically, the reason why they do this is kind of to, like, I don't know, like, I honestly don't know why quests reward you with so much experience. I guess it's because otherwise people will complain that they're not leveling up, because the experience gained from farming enemies on the field is pretty shit, so they need to give you some experience at some point to make you feel like you're leveling up. But the problem with this is, it feels more like they're trying to keep the player on track with the story, and less about preventing grinding, and that's how it feels to me. And if that's the case, then that's just bad game design, because you've got an open world here. If there's an open world here, then that basically tells me, as the player, that there's freedom in this game. But you've basically incentivized players to keep on track, which basically means that the incentives act as a barrier to freedom, if that makes sense, which is a conflicting design choice, because now you've got all this rewarding experience. It's like, for example, it's basically what Keith Bergen in his game design theory likes to call false choices. And basically what this means is, when you have a list of choices given to you, but one choice ridiculously outweighs the rest, And that's exactly what this is. It's a false choice in the sense that, yeah, you can do other things, but it is the wrong thing to do. And the game makes it very clear that the right thing to do is to follow the story and not to deviate from your path in any way other than doing side quests, which also require you to fight monsters of different levels as well. So some side quests that you get like really early in the game and like near impossible because they require you to be like level 20 and all that. Like, it's just like, what's the point in giving me a side quest that requires me to be level 20 up to like do it or stand a chance at doing it? Like, I did a quest that I was like level 9 and there was a quest which required me to be level 10. I thought, oh, this will be challenging, this will be pretty fun, I'll give it a go, see if it's a good challenge. And I just couldn't kill the enemy because it kept healing. And its health and its healing ability just completely, like, overwhelmed me. Like, my DPS could not keep up with its healing at all. And that was an issue to me. Like, what's the point in having healing enemies? Like, what's the point in having that whatsoever? But they do. Like, there's werewolves which heal themselves as well. And it's just like, if you're not a high enough level to deal with these enemies, then you just they're basically invincible. And you can't kill them. Or at least next to invincible, and it's just a pain in the ass. So I basically just leveled to level 10, refought the enemy, and killed it easily. Like, it's like, just because I leveled to level 10 and reached the recommended level meant that I could easily kill the enemy when it took me ages to deal anything to the enemy. And like, I could barely do anything to the enemy because it kept healing, and it just took forever, and I never did anything. Like, I could never kill it. And that pissed me off, and it's like, so basically, you have to be level 10 to do this, I guess, because I clearly can't do it at this level. I have to do it at a higher level, and I did, and then I did it, and it's just like, it's stupid, and this is another conflicting issue with the design. Why is this game an RPG? Why does it have a leveling system? I'll tell you why. Because people like leveling systems. People like RPGs, so let's get the RPG crowd. This is something that games have been doing for years now, like, well, at least for quite a while, because, believe it or not, a lot of us grew up playing a lot of RPGs, and the reason why people like RPGs is that they're the games that people tend to be, I might be generalizing here, but a lot of people tend to be attached mostly to RPGs. Like, those are the games that people usually remember fondly, like, or more fondly than others. So, as such, like, the genre has essentially become like a marketing tool for people to like use to incentivize people to pick the game up because it's an RPG. Like, and they'll think, oh yeah, I played this RPG before and it was amazing, it was an incredible experience, I want to play another one. And then they play it and it's like, what the hell is this shit? It's a third person shooter. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Mass Effect 2. There's another game that I didn't finish and I don't even own anymore because I sold it. Unfortunately, I bought Witcher 3 on PC, and I played too much of the game because I was trying to figure out if I was going to like it or not, and then I played over 2 hours, and I couldn't get a refund, so yeah, I was stuck with it. But, hey, it could be worse. Could be stuck with Kingdom Come Deliverance. Oh wait, I'm stuck with that game as well. That's an episode for another time. I'm not even going to get to that yet, but yeah, I want to talk about a few more things about Witcher 3. Like, that's the biggest problem that I have with it, the fact that the open world conflicts with everything and the leveling system conflicts with it. If you ask me, like, Witcher 3 feels like an Assassin's Creed game. It feels like I'm playing Assassin's Creed without the stealth elements. It feels like just a regular ass, I don't want to say a hack and slash, it's like, it's kind of like a basic action game. It's kind of like a Batman type of game, kinda, but it's kinda not. How do I describe it? It feels like I'm playing Assassin's Creed because of the time and the fact that it's kind of like, I don't know, using like medieval weaponry and stuff, but like it feels like it in like, I don't know, the setting and the fact that it's kind of an action game in the sense that like you're like slashing away at enemies, but you don't really gain like experience in Assassin's Creed. Not really. You get upgrades and stuff, but you're not actually leveling up, if that makes sense. I'm not talking about the modern Assassin's Creed, I'm talking about the older ones, not Like, even though I would say that Witcher 3 feels a lot more similar to Assassin's Creed Origins, because that pretty much is Witcher 3 at this point, because it has a leveling system. The only difference is it actually has stealth in it, because like Assassin's Creed Origins focuses a lot more on the actual combat. I haven't played it, but I've seen someone else play it. But Witcher 3, everything would be so much better if it didn't have a leveling system. That's the first thing I want to bring up. Like, if it didn't have a leveling system, it would be a massive improvement to the game if it didn't have one. Let's put it that way. I would say that the open world would be a lot more enjoyable if it didn't have a leveling system, as the leveling system is the biggest problem with the game. Not the system itself, but the way that experience is gained. If it didn't have levels, if it didn't have experience points, it would be a better game. That being said, however, I want to bring up another problem that I have with the game, and that is the combat. Now, the combat really, like, the problem with the combat is difficult to explain, but basically it is really janky. It feels awkward to play. I hate how Geralt backpedals away from enemies. I hate how Geralt locks on to one enemy and like focuses on hitting that one enemy. Meanwhile, he's surrounded by a ton of enemies. And unfortunately, in Witcher 3, there's no real way to like deal with tons of enemies around you. So there's no effective method of AoE early on in the game. Now, apparently, there is like an ability called Whirl that you can get later on, but at the beginning of the game, the only AoE attack you have is Igni, and that consumes your magic, and it's not really that effective compared to like another spell, which I'll get to later, so there's no point in using it. But basically, the problem is that it's a combat system that, while it does work in like one-on-one combat, kind of, especially if you're up against if you're up against someone who's wielding a weapon, like a sword or a club, it actually works because there is actually a parrying ability which you can actually parry their attacks, and it works surprisingly well. However, this is Witcher we're talking about here. It's about fighting fiends, like, and giant monsters, and all that lot. So really, it's about fighting these monsters, and it's like the combat system doesn't work well when you're surrounded by wolves, and it's usually when you're surrounded by monsters where the combat system gets kind of annoying. Yes, I know that there's spells like Yrden. Yes, I know there's spells like Igni, and the spells are kind of like crowd control, but the problem is that the game still feels, for the most part, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, and that's kind of how the game feels, because when you attack, then immediately, the moment that you use your attack animation, an enemy is about to hit you, so you have to dodge, and then attack that enemy, then another enemy is about to hit you, then you have to dodge that, and then attack again, and then that enemy that you just hit is about to hit you, and then it's just annoying, and that's kind of how it feels. It's just so much dodging and attacking, and dodging and attacking, and it's a pain. Now, it wouldn't be so bad if there was an AoE, like an effective AoE early on, that had some stopping power. For example, like the Technomancer, like when you're using the, I mean, I want to talk about that combat system because I've been playing the Technomancer recently, and yes, that game's very similar to Witcher 3 in the sense that it's dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, but I want to give it the benefit of the doubt because it does have the ability to, like, do an AoE move early on in the game. And even if you don't have that move, you can still hit two enemies at once with your staff. Like, because there's no lock-on, it just attacks what's in front of you. So you basically just, if like two enemies are in front of you and you swing your staff, it hits both enemies. Like, you're not focused on one specific enemy, and that's why it works. But Witcher 3 doesn't because of the way that you lock onto enemies. And another thing I hate is that when you go into combat, it's like you unsheath your sword and then you go into, like, you start walking around, and like you can't like run around when you're in combat. You start walking, and it's like, what if you want to run away from battle? It's like, you can, and there's some fights that you will want to run away from, believe me, particularly early on in the game. So yeah, that's a problem, and it just feels really awkward. Like, the transition into combat, you can't get away from that transition. It's going to happen where when you get towards an enemy, you automatically unsheath your weapon and you go to attack that enemy. Why you automatically do so, I have no idea. Why you can't manually do it, I don't know. I mean, just press left or right and you get your sword back on the D-pad. That's like gamepad controls. I'm not even going to get started on PC controls because they're an absolute. They are absolutely horrendous. Like, I have to press. I've forgotten what it is now, but I have to press a button as well as left click to do a certain thing. And I was like, the moment I saw that, I had to press something on the keyboard as well as on my mouse at the same time to perform a basic action. I'm like, fuck this. I'm going with gamepad because keyboard controls suck in this game. They are dreadful. So I went with gamepad, and yeah, it's better, but let's put it this way, it doesn't save the combat system at all. The combat system just doesn't feel right. The animations just feel like they take too long, and it just doesn't. I just don't like how it flows because of that. But at the same time, it's kind of like I feel that, like, because this is the thing, the game has two different attacks, strong attacks and weak attacks. I wonder what game that reminds me of. Oh wait, Star Rush Until the End of Time had the same thing. Come to think of it, so did Gothic 3. But to be fair on Gothic 3, at least that game like allowed you to charge up your attacks. It didn't have a separate button for strong attacks, like Witcher 3 does. And this is the problem. Why do you have a separate button for strong attacks and fast attacks? Now, you might argue, well, you might want to mix things up. Well, here's the thing. There's two, and this is another thing that annoys me about how the leveling system conflicts with the gameplay. There's two tech trees, one for fast attacks, one for strong attacks. Now, you're encouraged to go down either path. So, you're going to pick one and stick with it. And if you stick with it, then it's better to just stick with using fast attacks. And believe me, you will want to use fast attacks because at the end, you get an ability called Whirl, which is a crowd control ability. So you will want to use fast attacks. You'll never want to use strong attacks. There's no point. Just basically mash X until you're about to get hit and dodge. That's basically the game. Or it would have been had it not been for an extremely broken spell. Now, just forget about all the spells in the game except two spells. Those are Axii and Quen. Axii and Quen are the only two spells you will ever need to use in this game. Every other spell is pointless and a waste of time, aside from maybe a few quests which require you to like cast these spells. But other than that, like, you'll only be using Axii and Quen, but most of the time you'll be using Quen, particularly in combat. Why? Because Quen makes you invincible. Yes, it is a shield that makes you invincible to all attacks until like it's depleted, and then when it's depleted, then you can be vulnerable again. But the thing about Quen is usually when it's depleted, you can usually just cast it again because your like mana or whatever it's called. I don't know, stamina, mana, I don't know what it's called in this game, I've forgotten. But it regenerates really quickly. So like when you get hit, you can just recast it and then just start whacking the enemies again and just mashing like the attack button again. It's just like that's what the combat system is. That's all it is. It's just Quen, mash the attack button. Quen, mash the attack button. Quen, mash the attack button. It gets better because if you choose to level up Quen with your skill points, it gets even more effective, and I recommend doing so. Like, level up Quen to max immediately. Level up fast attack and Quen. Those are the two things you want to level up immediately. Because if you level up Quen, then you have the ability of, like, when your shield breaks, like, it creates a shockwave, which I think knocks enemies back, if I recall. And this is really useful, and it just makes Quen so broken. Like, if it wasn't broken before, it is now. So yeah, if once you max out Quen, you've basically won the game. Just mash X and press Quen. You can't lose. Well, you can, but like only if you get unlucky. But if you keep doing that, you're sure to eventually do it. Eventually, so yeah. But that's the combat. The other spells are just useless because they don't make you invincible. I mean, Axii can be handy, granted. Like, for example, when you're fighting werewolves who heal themselves, it can be very handy to use Axii simply because, like, they're stunned, and that stun is very important to, like, allow you to deal more hits against them without having to dodge them all the time, which gives them time to regenerate. So that means you can keep piling on the hits and stuff, which is very important when you're up against enemies that regenerate health. So sometimes you need to put DPS over protection first, and that's where Axii comes in handy. But other than that, when in every other fight, just basically use Quen and you will win guaranteed. So yeah, that's basically the combat system. Mash the attack button and then use Quen, rinse and repeat. I don't really need to say anything else about the combat system because that's basically all it is. There is more to it if you want to do more with it, but let's put it this way, there's no point because Quen is so overpowered. So yeah, that's the combat system. Now, one final thing I want to talk about with Witcher 3 is repairing equipment. And this is something that annoys me in every single game that has it that is not a realistic medieval simulator. And to be fair, it kind of annoys me in a lot of games, especially when it's done the way Witcher 3 does it. But the reason why I have a problem with this is because in a fantasy world, you really shouldn't have to worry about repairing your equipment. Like, you could make the excuse of, like, weapons are magical and thus they are, like, impenetrable because of magic, or they repair themselves because of magic. Like, it's a fantasy world. You can get away with doing this shit. I don't care. Like, as long as the game's fun to play, I don't care what excuses you come up with if it's a fantasy world. Like, you can do anything. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to make sense. It's fantasy. As long as you can justify it, that's all that matters. And this is the thing that annoys me. Like, why do you have to add elements of realism to a game which don't need it? And before people say, oh, it makes the game more challenging because you have to keep your equipment repaired. No, it doesn't. Because all I have to do to repair equipment is go to the shop, repair it, which means backtracking, needless backtracking, and then I have to go all the way back. Plus, another thing that annoys me in this game is at the beginning of the game, the quest basically rewards you with less gold than you need to actually repair your equipment. So basically, when you're playing the game at the beginning, you're basically stuck with shitty equipment, like, that's nearly broken for a long time. So basically, you have this sword, and, like, you've been using this sword for so long, and then it's near broken, and it's like, oh, I need to repair it. Oh, wait, I have basically no gold, and I need, like, I need 50 gold to repair it. Then you do a quest, and you're like, oh, I'll do this quest. This quest will reward me with gold, so I'm going to do this quest. And you do the quest, and then they give you 10 gold for it. But your repair costs, like, require you to spend 50 gold. So basically, all the quest has done is barely even started to cover your repairs. So it hadn't even covered your repairs. So basically, you did the entire quest, and you're kind of punished for doing the quest because now you've used your sword and it's started to, like, wear and tear and stuff, and you get like 10 gold or whatever it's called, orens or whatever the currency is. It's different, like, different currency all the time. I can't keep up with all the currencies in Witcher 3. There's tons of them. But basically, yeah, you get 10 of whatever it is, and you need 50 of it. So that means you think, oh, I'll do 5 quests. Well, you can't, because then your sword will break. And it's just like, it's ridiculous. Like, the beginning of the game is so poorly designed, I cannot stress it enough. I was ready to put the game down right at the beginning. Like, I really was. I did play on a bit longer, though, and I will admit it did start to get a little better because, well, the world started to open up a bit more, and I was rewarded with a lot more money because I got access to, like, bounty hunts and stuff where I could, like, decide how much they pay me instead of being paid a set amount. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna charge these motherfuckers a ton of money for doing their freaking dirty work. I did. I made damn well sure I was paid well for those tasks, and yeah, like, at that point I could actually start repairing equipment and buying new equipment because I actually have money. But early on, I could barely do anything. Like, you are so poor at the beginning of the game, it is just unreal. But then eventually you get to, like, Velen, and then you get to other areas, and then they just start throwing money at you, and it's just like, it just feels wrong. Like, it just doesn't feel right how I'm, like, at the beginning of the game, and I'm, like, rewarded with, like, chump change, yet I go to the other side of the world, and then everybody's got tons of money. It's just like, I don't know, like, it's just ridiculous to me. It's just like, why does it start off so needlessly hard and then get easier the more you play it? Shouldn't it be, like, easy at the start and hard at the end? Isn't that how it should be? Clearly, apparently that's not how it should be according to CD Projekt Red. So they want it to be hard at the beginning, and then later on it starts getting easier because you learn that Quen exists, and then you're just like, oh, I'll just spam Quen, and yeah, you've won the game. But at the start of the game, you're just getting used to it. You don't really know much about the spells. You're just experimenting, and you're getting to grips with the combat system. But they make it so hard to do that at the beginning of the game because, like, of all the repairs and all the stuff you have to deal with, and like you don't really know much about spells, and then enemies end up killing you because you're really low level and you barely have any health, and yeah, it's tough at the beginning of the game, and I don't know why it needs to be. Like, just ease us into it and make the difficulty like, give us the difficult bits later on. Yeah, you can level us up and make us feel stronger, but then you make the enemies even stronger than we are. That's how you do it, not make the enemies, like, well, it's not really the enemies specifically, but don't make the game ridiculously hard at the beginning and then just make it easy later on because we figure it out. Like, I guess you could argue that, like, if you did know about the Quen trick early on, then yeah, it would be easy. But you know, we're just trying to learn the game, and I'm not against tutorials, but as I say, even if there wasn't a tutorial, I'd still wouldn't mind learning through doing, as long as the game is easy and eases me into learning the system. But the game doesn't, because I want to explore and go places, but while I'm in this little area here, I want to just experiment with the combat system and see how it works and learn it. But the game, like, it's, oh no, you're gonna have a painful experience right from the get-go. It's just like, oh, charming. Like, I have to suffer right at the beginning. It's just like, it's just stupid. Like, why make the player suffer right at the beginning? What's the point in it? What do you get out of it? Do you get pleasure out of watching us suffer? I have no idea. But yeah, that's basically my take on the repair system of Witcher 3, and yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. So basically, I stopped playing this game. Like, I did play a bit, like, through the story a bit, and the story, well, the plot of the game is just dreadful. Like, it's basically, find Ciri. Well, that sounds simple, doesn't it? Except you have to talk to this guy, then you have to talk to this other guy who knows this other guy who might know more information about this guy who knows information about Ciri, so you have to talk to this guy, then before he leads you to the guy who knows information about Ciri, you have to do a mission for him, which requires you to talk to, like, 2 other guys, and you get the gist. That's basically Witcher 3 in a nutshell. It's annoying, it's predictable, I saw it coming from a mile away, and yeah. I mean, granted, it does try to do some interesting things in the story to, like, spice things up, particularly when you get to the, the first city in the game, like, the big city in the game. But even then, it's just like, can I just find Ciri already? Why am I, like, trying to prepare for this, like, I don't know what it was called, like, basically, like, this, I think it was, like, some sort of a pantomime or something, I don't know. But you have to basically, there's this show, and you basically have to, like, do this show thing to, like, attract this guy and bring him out of hiding, and it's just like, why am I doing this? I just want to find Ciri. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do a pantomime. Like, it's a waste of my time. And yeah, it's just, that's the problem with it. And when you do finally figure out where Ciri, like, get information on Ciri, it's just like, oh wow, wonderful. Like, that took forever to get, and it just wasn't worth it, because now all we've got is another lead, which now we have to use this lead to find Ciri elsewhere. We have to travel to a whole different area where we have to find Ciri again, and it's just like, this is boring. This is just freaking boring and annoying. And I've come to the point now where we finally know where Ciri is, but now there's something else happening. I'm not going to say it because spoilers, but something else is happening, and now you have to go all around the world talking to everybody you talked to in the story all over again to gather them all together, and it's just like, I have to go all the way around the world and talk to everyone all over again for something that, like, it just feels so stupid, and it's just like, why am I doing this? The story doesn't really feel like I think it's the plot that's the problem. The story is just, it's boring because the plot is so lame, and you just really don't feel like the plot is good enough to carry the rest of the game. The plot is just pathetic. It is. And that's what hurts the overall story, really, because of how pathetic the plot is. It's like you just don't care about the plot. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if it was a proper open world game that didn't try to push the story down your throat. If I could go out and roam the world and not be punished by fighting enemies that are too high level than me, then I wouldn't care about the story. But since the game's clearly trying to, like, drive it down my throat, I have to care. And the story, at least from what I've played, just, it's not doing anything for me. I'm sorry if you enjoyed the story of Witcher 3, I really am, but I just can't enjoy a game where the plot is the same thing for like ages and doesn't change. I mean, I can to some degree. There are games where I can do that, but only if they do it in a way that keeps things fresh enough and like justified. Like, there's no justification in like having to go to a pantomime to like bring this guy out of hiding just so that he can talk to this other guy just so I can find Ciri. Like, there's better ways to find Ciri. I'm sorry, but there are better ways to find Ciri. Just travel the world, which, considering the fact that it's an open world, why not just let the player find, like, search for like Ciri on their own, and maybe like through exploration instead of like following like an actual linear story. Maybe by exploring the world, you'll eventually come to this place, like this random place and like this random island in the middle of nowhere, and then suddenly Ciri's there. Oh wow, Ciri! I just traveled the entire world and I just found you, and then the game ends. Why couldn't it just been that? Why couldn't they have just done that? In fact, that would have been better. It would have been better than having any of that stupid narrative. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like the actual writing isn't bad. The writing's pretty decent actually. Like, I think that Geralt's delivery kills a lot of the like humor that the game tries to have, but aside from that, it's like, aside from Geralt's delivery of his lines and all that, like, I think the dialogue is pretty decent. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it's decent. I think, like, the characters themselves, like, Geralt is basically, he tries to be like this, I don't know, he comes across as like really sardonic in the sense that he's less like, he sounds, I think it's because of his lack of emotion that it comes across as sardonic, but he's basically tries to be snarky sometimes, but other than that, he's basically just like this random mercenary dude. You know, like every single protagonist in a Western RPG, let's just admit it, like Gothic 3, or well, Gothic, every Gothic game has you playing as some random mercenary, so yeah. Or the nameless hero, who is basically just a mercenary for hire. Like, tell me one Western RPG. I'm sure that people can think of one Western RPG that doesn't have you play as a mercenary. Like, but tell me one Western RPG where you aren't a mercenary. Yes, there's probably some Western RPGs out there where you don't play as a mercenary, but try and list all of them. List all of the Western RPGs where you don't play as a mercenary, and then list them in the comments, because I want to see, how many people can think of, because there's just too many freaking Western RPGs where you play as this random mercenary who's just looking for work in this huge open world, and that's basically what Geralt is. So yeah, basically I'm just gonna cut it there and just say Witcher 3 just disappointed me. Like, I expected better from this game. I expected to enjoy this game a lot more than I did, but I just couldn't. The game just feels like it didn't really know what it wanted to be, and I think that's the problem with it. Like, it didn't know whether it wanted to be an open world game or a story driven game, and it ended up trying to do both, and it just fell flat on its ass because it did that. So that's why I didn't finish Witcher 3, because I just got bored of it, I just got fed up of it, and it just started to become annoying. I just didn't have the drive to play anymore. I just couldn't push myself to play any more of Witcher 3, because it was just becoming a hassle to play it. So, I have heard about Cyberpunk 77, and I've heard about, like, some things that have been going on behind the scenes about the developers, like, debating between whether they're going to be, like, have a first-person game or a third-person game, and I'm like, why are you debating this? Like, this should have been decided from day one. If you're debating about whether it should be first-person or third-person, you're doing something wrong, because you should stick to your guns. If you're going to make a first-person game, you should build your game around a first-person perspective to begin with. So, really, if you've built the game around a first-person perspective, you really shouldn't be questioning whether or not you should go third-person, because that's just a waste of time to actually build your game around a third person right after you build it around the first person, because that basically means that you have to start again from scratch just to build it around a completely different perspective. But yeah, that's a rant, well, that's not a rant that I'm having now, because I don't know if Cyberpunk 77 will be good or bad. I hope it's good, but I have no idea. Like, it could be a complete mess like Witcher 3, or it could actually impress me. I don't know. Like, I don't even know if I'll even buy the game. Like, the game just needs to have something that will impress me first. Like, that's the thing. Like, Witcher 3, at least it had something that looked interesting, like, enough for me to pick it up. Will Cyberpunk 77 interest me enough for me to try it? Because it's more than just it being like a CD Projekt Red game. And here's the thing about CD Projekt Red. I don't hate CD Projekt Red. I like the company and what it stands for, but I just didn't like Witcher 3. I'm just hoping that Cyberpunk 77 doesn't, like, suffer from the same pitfalls as Witcher 3, and I hope that it ends up being a solid game, because I really do want to like CD Projekt Red and support them, despite Witcher 3 being just awful to play. But, as I say, I'm not going to support you if you don't give me a reason to support you. Give me something, like, give me an incentive to play your game. Like, it's an RPG, you have character creation now, cool, and it's Cyberpunk, cool, whatever. Like, so was the Technomancer. I've played a Cyberpunk, like, Western RPG, like, why should I play yours? That's a good question. You see, here's a question that all game developers need to be asking themselves. Why should anyone else play your game just because it is what it is? What makes your game stand out from all other games? This is a question that a lot of game developers, particularly AAA game developers, have failed to answer in the past decade. Answer that goddamn question already, game developers. Anyways, I'm off. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. But yeah, I don't know if I'll be doing more of them. It depends. If people like it, then I might do more of them. But as I say, if it doesn't get received, well, I might not bother and I might just keep doing what I do. It depends on also how I feel. If I feel like there's more potential to continue these sort of videos, I might continue them regardless of what people say. But yeah, if you like the video, then tell me and I might do more. So yeah, I'll see you guys later.